Huh? Who is this? It's you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today is Mega Nerf Wednesday. That's right, we have gotten our reset in EU as well. And what came with the reset is a set of quite large nerfs to the last bosses of the raid. What is also interesting is that the nerfs are also gradually increasing in scale. So we start with some nerfs to Anduin, then some significant nerfs to Rygelon, and then even bigger nerfs to the Jailer. So it's gonna be interesting to see what level of nerfs have been given to these bosses, starting with Anduin. Anduin is the one that receives the smallest amount of nerfs, because one nerf is to the Kingsmorn phase. The phase used to last a maximum of 35 seconds, now it's extended to 40 seconds. This is mostly not very relevant. Healers, from the moment they dispel the healing mobs, the healing NPCs, they only have basically 10 seconds of time to heal the mobs, so it doesn't really matter for them, this change. And the DPS should also have plenty enough time already to deal with all of the adds downstairs. So this extra 5-second duration doesn't affect too much. The largest thing it might affect is actually that you can now try to keep one extra DPS upstairs, instead of bringing it down in the Kingsmorn phase to do more Anduin damage, perhaps. That's the biggest effect that this nerf could have. Anduin gets another nerf in the other change, which is the change to Blasphemy. The duration of Blasphemy used to be 8 seconds, now the duration of Blasphemy is 12. So a 50% duration increase. If you don't know what I'm talking about the marks. In the Anduin fight, he will cast some circles on players. One is gonna be yellow, one is gonna be blue. You have to match the yellow player with a blue player, run on top of each other and make the circles disappear. If you don't, within 8 seconds you blow up and die. The problem with this mechanic is that in Mythic you could not cross. You could not go next to or close to players with the same mark, and also players without any mark. So even if you had 2, 4, 6, 8 players that cleared their mark, you still couldn't go over them. If you had to cross the entire platform to go to the player with the opposite mark that was left, everyone else needed to be out of the way or you would blow up. You, them, the raid. So this change is quite important, because going by personal experience, this was one of the main wipe reasons in phase 1 progression of Anduin. Dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of wipes are going to be caused by this Blasphemy mechanic. So giving you 50% more time should also make it somewhat easier for players to take it a little bit easy with the mechanic. Don't try to speed blitz through the group and just bomb rush 5 people in one and make them all blow up. This should make it easier to progress on Anduin. However, these are still somewhat minor nerfs compared to the previous nerfs that Anduin got a few weeks ago, so it's mostly an extra retouching. Who gets a significant, harsher round of nerfs is Rygelon. Rygelon gets 4 nerfs, one of which is the weaker one and mostly forgettable, is the change in damage and radius of the circle of the unstable Quasar. This is the black swirly that gets targeted on players inside the intermission, the alternate reality phase. And if you get it, you have to move out of the group, wait for it to explode, go back in. It used to be 30-ish thousand damage per player, so it wasn't that dangerous. It got nerfed in damage by 20%, and now the radius, the circle in which the explosion is going to hit players, went from 8 yards to 6. As I said, this is the most forgettable of the nerfs. The other 3, however, are not. We have one mechanic nerf to the collapsing Quasar field, which is now going to last 2 more seconds. In case you don't know anything about Rygelon, even less about Rygelon mythic mechanics, when you kill the Quasars that spawn and try to reach the boss, they will leave behind a paddle. The boss will also be casting Dark Eclipse periodically. This is going to target players, DPS players, and is going to put a bomb on their head. After 18, I think, seconds, the bomb is going to blow up and kill everyone. Unless you walk on top of one of these paddles left on the ground by the Quasars you killed and get transported into this alternate dimension where the bomb won't kill everyone. That's what this mechanic was for, that's what the mechanic is for. The problem, of course, is that the window for you to gain the buff, find the pool that you need to go into, was only 6 seconds, which could very often cause wipes, because players would get confused. So now you have 2 extra seconds worth of time to try to navigate around which paddle you have to go with, so should be easier mechanically. What should also be easier is the massive set of damage nerfs given to Rygelon, because Cosmic Ejection damage has been nerfed by 33% and Dark Collapse has been nerfed by 25%. Cosmic Ejection is what happens when you are the closest player to these bright circles over here, the Cosmic Cores. 3 of them are going to spawn in rounds of 3. Every phase is going to happen 4 times. 3, 3, 3. Next phase 3, 3, 3. Next phase 3, 3, 3. Last phase 3, 3, 3. Every time they spawn, you have to have 1 player assigned to be the closest one to soak the damage done by this, the Cosmic Ejection, and then be left behind with a dot called Cosmic Irregularity. The dot gets quite dangerous over time, especially when you soak a second time and you get up to 6 stacks of the dot is quite dangerous, but also what is dangerous is the Cosmic Ejection that gets nerfed. So this is going to help soakers stay alive much more easily, especially because the soakers of this mechanic are usually healers. So it's going to make the fight much less chaotic because healers should have an easier time tending for themselves because of this mechanic while they try to heal the raid. What is even more important, however, is the nerf given to Rygelon on Dark Collapse, because Dark Collapse is the continuous, ever-going raid damage that happens inside the fight. As you can see here, this is the source of damage coming from Rygelon, and Dark Collapse is quite handily at the top of damage done. So this getting nerfed by 25% is quite significant. It's going to give you much more of a breathing room inside the fight where there is tons of damage going out at the same time. You have the heal absorb preventing players from being healed, plus you have 3 healers trying to soak the cores, plus you have this raid damage going out at the same time, plus every time these quasars blow up they also do damage to the raid. So there is plenty of damage, and this is a significant nerf to the overall damage done by Rygelon. So we started with Anduin, which was a minor nerf. We got to Rygelon, which is a significant nerf, and then we get to the Jailer, which has the largest and the most amount of nerfs given to him. First of all, you have the nerf to Azerite Radiation. Azerite Radiation is the buff that gives you more damage, but at the same time makes you take more damage from Surging Azerite. So you get your stacking 3% more damage, but you're also taking 100% more damage from this arc lightning of Azerite that happens periodically. This would stack, so the more damage you wanted, the more damage you would take. This damage has been nerfed from 100% more damage taken per stack to 80% more damage taken per stack. This is not too big, however. Where we start getting a little bit bigger is in the damage of Torment, which gets nerfed by 10%. The damage of Torment is, you know, the spread mechanic with the circles, don't be inside other people's circles to take double damage, etc, etc. It's one of the highest sources of damage in the encounter, so it gets nerfed overall by 10%. Then we have the change to Rune of Compulsion. This might be a little bit sad for AoE padders, because this was the mechanic that would target 4 players, and after 4 seconds they would become mind controlled. They would have a big shield on top of them that would absorb damage, and then as they were mind controlled they would try to run off the platform by themselves. So the plan is to, if you get the mark, you stack on top of each other, you get crowd controlled, and you get damaged until you break your mind control. Now the targets are 3 instead of 4. It's easier now to do damage, it's easier now to group people up. What you want to do is still the same. Group up, CC them in place and AoE them down, so whether it's 3 or 4 players, the mechanic, the way it works, stays the same. Another nerf to the Jailer was the dot left behind by Shattering Blast, which is the tank mechanic, so you should care not for this, also because the damage wasn't that big to begin with, so it's not that big of a deal. You also have the damage reduction of Chainbreaker. This is, you know Soul Render, guys, you know Soul Render? Yeah, it's somewhat similar, except you get players targeted to the tank with chains, and then you have to run away to break the chains, and when you break the chains you do AoE damage. What a surprise! The damage of this chain breaking is being reduced by 10%. Lastly, you have the Meteor Cleave. one of the good old mechanics in WoW raids, which is mega gigantic hit that needs to be spread across the entire raid. So everyone needs to group up and soak this damage together. This damage is now going to be 9.1% weaker than before. So quite a vast amount of nerfs for the Jailer as well, more than Rygelon and significantly more than Anduin. A lot of this is not too much mechanical changes, it's just the extra less player for the Rune of Compulsion, for the Mind Control rune. Most of everything else is just less damage taken across the board. Surging, Azerite and Torment are quite continuous throughout the entire encounter, and then you have some more nerfs towards the later phase of the encounter with the Chain Break nerf in damage, as well as the cleave, the mega cleave nerf in damage happening to the Jailer. So, you know, this ought to sort of speed up a little bit the progression of the guilds that are now trying to make the last stretch. We have pointed out already before that the progression has slowed down towards the latter bosses because the difficulty seems to be quite ramped up compared to previous tiers, whereas this one has been significantly hefty. You know, Alonjus was a massive block before the nerf, and then it was still very difficult to go through Anduin. You got a little bit of a respite in Lords of Dread, which was quite manageable, but then back down on a tough boss like Rygelon, and then even worse for the Jailer. So it has been, and it continues to be, quite a tough tier in terms of progression. So I guess this is a well-timed and well-expected set of nerfs for the last bosses of Sepulcher. So with this we can close our review of the nerfs. As I said, growing in power and in magnitude of the nerf as we get closer to the last boss. So let me guys know what you think about these buffs, if you have been progressing in any of these bosses or you are about to progress on any of these bosses. Perhaps what's been your experience to go through these bosses, what at this point is pre-nerf. But beyond this, I'm going to leave it to the rest of your reset. Thank you guys again for watching and for helping to grow the channel, which also includes liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to this channel. This one being, of course, a raid-related video about nerfs. The subscription button will be open for today only to everyone who has defeated at the very least one of these bosses in their pre-nerfed version. Thank you guys again. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, yeah, once again, over time this light just gets a little bit too overbearing. It needs to be cold